How's everyone feeling? It feels very good to be with you. Angie, Anita, Chayito, Paul, everyone who helped make this possible, each one of you who's taken some time out of your day to be here with us, to welcome us once again to San Antonio. Let me tell you, I am grateful to be here with you. I feel lucky, I feel fortunate. I'm excited for the next 4 months, which is all that stands between us and the 6th of November, to do the work that we can do to make sure that we deliver for this state and for this country at this critical moment. So thank you for being part of it. Everything that we do in our lives, everything that we're doing right now is a choice. And I have to remind myself of that, and maybe you do as well, because sometimes we think this stuff is out of our control. There is this guy in the White House who is just raining down a blizzard of bizarre lies and doing things that do not feel like us. This doesn't feel like America. Taking kids from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border, putting them in cages, separating them, and not ensuring that those kids or their moms who sacrificed literally everything, including themselves in some cases, to bring those children here, fleeing the most violent, the most brutal, the most horrific places in this hemisphere, as any human in the same situation might very well do. I think that's what Amy and I would do if we had no other choice. If this is how we were going to save Molly's life, and her brother Henry, and their older brother Ulysses, then we would walk 2,000 miles. We'd jump on top of a train known as La Bestia. We'd ride the distance. We'd come to some place where we could find safety or salvation or asylum or refuge for those kids. And we know, right? And no people know this better than the people of Texas and the people of San Antonio and the people of El Paso that we are a country of immigrants, of asylum seekers, of refugees, of those who have come from the planet over to find a home here in the most diverse country now on the planet, in the most diverse state in the most diverse country on the planet, in a place that does not feel like the one that would be reading the headlines or seeing the TV reports of these kids, now 2,500 of them, who have been taken from their parents. Many of whom we had the chance to visit in Tornillo, this new tent encampment that has been built by this administration to keep these kids as they wait in some kind of perverse limbo, many of whose parents have already been deported back to Guatemala, to Honduras, to El Salvador, and who are waiting for who knows what, when they'll be able to see those parents, if they'll ever be able to see them at all. And I know the temptation sometimes from us is that is somebody doing this to them, and it's without our agency, without our control, and without any decision that we've made that this is happening. And to be clear, there was only one person who could have made this decision, and that was our president, Donald J. Trump, through his attorney general, that decided to treat every single one of those mothers, every single one of those dads, like common criminals for doing what any common human being would try to do in the same situation. Literally, if you were to attempt to cross into this country and find that Border Patrol agent, not run away from her or from him, but go to them and say, listen, I need help, we're dehydrated, we've been out in the sun for 2,000 miles, we're fleeing death. If we go back to Honduras, we will die. I need your help. Not too different than what the O'Rourke's did 5 generations ago, fleeing famine in Ireland, coming to this country. And thankfully, you all let us in. And we've been able to make a life here for generations and been able in some small way to contribute to the success of this country. And that's what these families are trying to do right now. And we say to ourselves, this is inhumane. Or this is in fact torture to visit that kind of trauma on those little kids. And remember, they're 3 years old, they're 4 years old, they're months old right now. And you don't listen to me, you listen to the pediatricians and the therapists and the psychiatrists, and they will tell you every single minute that we keep those kids away from their parents is another problem that we add to their lives, something that will stay with them for the rest of their lives, inflicting additional trauma every single day until we reunite them. And so we know this is inhumane. We know that this is torture. The open question is this American? I'd like to say it's un-American, but in fact this is being done or has been done in our name. And those kids are in that camp in Tornillo right now. They're in foster care homes all across this country, thousands of miles from where their parents are being kept or where their parents were deported back to. And it's happening in the United States of America. We are doing this. This is a decision for us. And I will tell you, those of you who lit up the switchboards at the White House when you first learned that this was happening, those of you who marched, who actually flew down to El Paso, Texas, and met us in Tornillo to bear witness and to testify and to make sure that our fellow Americans know exactly what is going on in our name at this very moment. Those of you who ratcheted up the pressure on your members of Congress, on your U.S. senators, you were the ones who at least temporarily reprieved parents from this awful fate of having their kids literally torn from their breasts at their most vulnerable, at their most desperate moment. That same pressure now needs to be brought to bear on this administration and in every single one of us who holds a position of public trust and responsibility to make sure that we reunite those families. And then going forward, not walls, not the National Guard, not ending family migration in this country, but moving proudly forward to ensure that we rewrite our immigration laws and our asylum laws in our own image to reflect our values and our interests, that we make sure that we don't just not deport the dreamers, but that we grant them full U.S. citizenship right now so they can contribute to their full potential, as well as their parents, as well as those who live in the shadows of the hardest work, the most unforgiving jobs. The stories of countless Americans before us. I was just in one of your most famous restaurants, meeting with one of your most successful restaurateurs, who was telling me his family's story. His dad, who arrived here undocumented, and with all of $150 invested in a restaurant that now has 6 different locations, that employs more than 600 people in this community. And that young, undocumented man who chose us, it wasn't an accident, it wasn't fortune, it wasn't luck that he was born here. He was born somewhere else and decided to come here. He has helped to make San Antonio and this state, and by extension, this country, the success that it is today. In El Paso, Texas, we celebrate the memory of one of our great veterans, and I see some veterans here today, those who literally put their lives on the line for this country, who served in the United States, who were willing to sacrifice everything for all of us and the generations that follow. There was a young man who had crossed from Chihuahua into El Paso, what we would call today an undocumented immigrant. And when World War I, more than 100 years ago, broke out, he proudly volunteered. He said, "This is my fight. No me importa that this may not be the country of which I am a citizen. This is the country that I chose, that I came to, that I'm working in, that I believe in, that has been so good to me. And I'm going to do everything I can for this country that I love." And his drill sergeant says, "Serna, you do not have to go to France. Every single man in this unit will go over. Not every single man in this unit will come back. This is not your fight. You do not have to do this." And of course he said, "I want to do this. This is my fight." And he goes over and he serves with distinction. And he comes back the most highly decorated veteran from the state of Texas to serve in all of World War I. An undocumented immigrant from Mexico, helping to contribute to the story of who we are in the United States of America. And at this time that we have someone proposing a 2,000-mile, 30-foot-high, $30 billion wall from Brownsville, Texas to San Diego, California, to cut us off from a country with whom we are not at war, where we have record low levels of northbound apprehensions, where we're already spending $20 billion a year to secure that border every single year. 20,000 Border Patrol agents lined up in between the ports of entry just in case. We just, in El Paso, dedicated a new international bridge to Ciudad Juarez, and it is named after Marcelino Serna. An important reminder at this critical moment about the choices that we can make. And the biggest choice before us, and that is who will represent our interests going forward in the U.S. Congress, in the United States Senate. Who will ensure that every single voice in this state, all 28 million, is heard? That every community is important, and that all of us, Republican, Democrat, independent, non-voter alike, non-citizen alike, has a voice in our future, in shaping the direction that this country will take, and making sure that we are proud of it. Imagine the history books that will be written about the year 2018. And if we allow Muslim bans to continue to reject all people of one faith from the shores of a country that is comprised of people and faiths and walks of life the world over, if we continue to describe the press as the enemy of the people, if we move forward with this wall, those great grandkids of ours, reading in their history books, are going to ask themselves, who were these pendejos of 2018? How did they allow this to happen? We will not be those pendejos. We will be better than that. We will be better than that. Everything that I can think of, that I care about, the future for my kids that I mentioned earlier, Ulysses, who's 11, Molly, who just turned 10, Henry, their little brother, who's 7 years old, everything is on the line for them right now. Everything that I've told them about this country with overflowing pride about what America means to me, the 230 years plus, that more or less, imperfect though we may be, we are the best thing going on the face of the earth. And though it takes us far too long to get it right, ultimately we do. Reading about someone at a meeting just like this handed me a book, and I've been reading. I kept it in my backpack. It's Taylor Branch's book, Parting the Waters, about the civil rights movement in the 1950s and the 1960s. And I gotta tell you, it makes me almost emotional with pride to think about the sacrifices that people made on our behalf. And I say ours, this generation's behalf, to make sure that there was a little bit more equal protection under the law, as it says above the steps on the Supreme Court, that we did a little bit of a better job in ensuring the civil rights of every single one of us, literally people who sacrificed their lives died in Philadelphia, Mississippi, received the blows, bled the blood, crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, sat at the lunch counters, punched in the face, spat upon, dragged out by your collar, humiliated in front of your fellow human beings, in front of your fellow Americans. I think about the sacrifices of Marcelino Serna, of the veterans who put their lives on the line for this country, of the freedom riders and the civil rights marchers. That is our heritage. That's the legacy of this country. And we, the people of today, of 2018, cannot be found wanting it. Now that can mean that we ensure that those kids are not continued to be separated from their parents, and that we reunite them as quickly as we can. It can mean that in this state, the least insured in the United States of America, where school teachers, though they have health insurance, and though they are beneficiaries of quote-unquote health care, are dying of the flu, at a time that their co-pays for their flu medication cost $119. And some school teachers do not have $119 in the bank. And so they're dying of this in the wealthiest, the most powerful, the most convenient country the world has ever known. We can do better in a state where the largest provider of mental health care services is the county jail system, to the point that people literally get arrested on purpose. And I've heard it in Lufkin, Texas. I've heard it in Amarillo, Texas. I've heard it in Bexar County, Texas. People get arrested because by law, that mental health care for your schizophrenia, for your bipolar disorder, for your depression has to be delivered in the county jail system. And things are so bad that you will get arrested to do that. Perhaps we, better than any other, understand the consequence of not having health care, not being well enough to finish your education, or to go to work and earn a paycheck and pay your taxes and reduce and relieve the burden that all the rest of us will carry if you're not well enough to carry your fair share. All of us will benefit if you're well enough to create art, or write a novel, or run for office, or organize in your community, or raise your family, or just do something that you and God intended for yourself in your life. I want to make sure that every child, every woman, every man is guaranteed high-quality health care, because it is universal in the United States of America, and we lead the way. And at a time, when you think about choices, this country, and we would like to blame it sometimes on another party. We'd like to blame it on the guy that's in the White House. Folks, it's all of us. This country, America, decided to spend up to $2 trillion on tax cuts that will go to the very wealthiest in this country, that will go to corporations that are already sitting on record piles of cash. And almost predictably, and Angie will tell me this, you then have people who use this as an excuse at a time that we already had $20 trillion in debt. We'll use this as an excuse to start talking about entitlement reform, which means cutting Medicare or Medicaid, or disavowing our obligation to those who paid in every single working day into Social Security. We need people who are going to make the choice, the decision to stand up for those people and those programs that care for them, and make sure that we honor our commitments to one another. Now, whether that means expanding Medicaid in this state that for some reason, who knows why, chose not to do so, even when the federal government was willing to pay 100 cents on the dollar for the expansion, there is still time for us to do it. And listen, if it is Greg Abbott that leads the way, and we call it Abbott Care, or Ted Cruz and we call it Cruz Care, I don't care as long as more people get care and they are better and well enough to do the things they're supposed to do in their lives. If we can expand Medicare instead of cutting Medicare, and make sure that a program, one of, if not the most popular in the United States of America. Listen, if you're looking for someone to beat up on, it's not Medicare, which enjoys record high levels of approval. It's Congress, which has 9% approval, just below communism, just above gonorrhea. What we really need to do is make sure that we expand the things that are, put term limits on members of Congress, expand Medicare so that it reaches more Americans at an overhead administrative cost of just 2%. That's what it costs for you and I, and we are the shareholders in Medicare. That's what it costs us to run this program that is so popular, does so much good for so many people. 2% overhead administrative costs for your private insurance carriers that provide private health insurance, it's 16 or 17% because you have to meet the obligations to the bottom line, the advertising budget, the executive suite on the 18th floor, the shareholders who are looking for a return on their investment, not the people. And the way that you've allowed us to run this campaign without any help from corporations or political action committees or super PACs or special interests, make sure that we respond to people. We're going to get our democracy back. And it's fun being in all 254 counties, going everywhere, going to places that voted for Donald Trump 96.5% in the 2016 election. But going there, because regardless of who they voted for in 2016, they're every bit as deserving of our respect. They're every bit as deserving of being fought for, of being served, of being represented. And also making sure that when we're in San Antonio, we're holding town hall meetings on the south side and on the west side and on the east side, and we're not waiting for you to come to us, although I'm glad that you did today. We're also going to be knocking on your doors and making sure that we meet you where you are to make sure that you see yourself in this campaign and that your story has become our story. And when I listen to people across this state, I see opportunity. And yes, sometimes it will begin with the challenge. Folks who will remind me that we have a school-to-prison pipeline in this state and in this country when black children are 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 times as likely to be disciplined in the same classroom for the same infraction as a white child. You see that school-to-prison pipeline begins as early as kindergarten. When you have a war on drugs that has become a war on people, and specifically some people, we know that white people and brown people and black people will use illegal drugs at the same rate. We know that it will be brown people and black people who help comprise the largest prison population on the face of the planet, bar none. So we've got to end that war on drugs. We've got to give people opportunity to lead their lives, to contribute to their full potential. We've got to make sure that we have equity in education and in healthcare, and we have true criminal justice reform. These are the opportunities that Texas can lead on. I'm not motivated by what I am afraid of. I'm not motivated by being against the other guy or the other party. I'm motivated, like you, by the things that we want to achieve. Our ambitious, aspirational goals. The big stuff at a time of smallness and pettiness and paranoia and anxiety and hatred and bigotry. The small shit that we've got to get over, right? We've got to be the big people that this country has been waiting for. The courage, the confidence, the strength to make sure that we are a match for the moment, that we can pass this test, and that we can deliver for this country at a moment that she needs us the most. That's what we're doing in this campaign. That is what has brought all of us together from 254 counties, including where we are here today in Bear. And I am, unbelievably, to me even, as hopeful, as encouraged as I have ever been in my life. Though there is darkness in this land, and deep disappointment, and some very serious challenges in front of us, I know that we are up to this test. I know that we are going to be bigger than those challenges. I know that we will overcome, and it's not just about winning this next election, although that's really important. It's about following through and delivering on the very high expectations that we are setting for one another. And I will close with this story. Being at town hall meetings like these, getting to meet some of these veterans who are my all-time heroes in life, who share with me some of the challenges that they face as they transition into civilian life, whether they transitioned in 1946, whether they transitioned after Korea, after Vietnam, after the first Gulf War, whether they just came back to San Antonio last week. Being able to see that healthcare provider put a roof over your head, find that job, that purpose, that function in your life that you found as part of a military unit, and at a time that 20 veterans a day, every single day, are taking their own lives. And amongst the population of veterans who have what is known as an other than honorable or bad paper discharge, the suicide rate is twice as high. I know that we're not holding up our end of the bargain as a country. And so we wrote a bill called the Honor Our Commitment Act that opens up mental health care to veterans who by law have been denied the ability to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist for their PTSD or their TBI or their MST. And that bill, introduced more than a year ago, March 22nd of 2017, was a great idea. A noble articulation of our purpose and our values, but was going absolutely nowhere unless we could find a Republican colleague with whom we could work. And so Mike Kaufman, Republican of Colorado, though he a Republican and I a Democrat, we both care just as much about the veterans that we serve, the veterans in this country, and we want to do better, and we were both willing to compromise a four-letter word in Washington, D.C. right now. I was able to say, listen, this is my ideal, this is what I think is perfection, but I'm willing to come off that a little bit if I can meet you somewhere where we're still doing a better job for those that we want to serve. Mike did the same thing on his part. We got it through committee, we got it passed on the floor of the House unanimously in December, and then we had to get it through the Senate. And we worked every relationship, every Republican, every Democrat. We formed new relationships where we had to. We worked with the administration, the Donald J. Trump administration, and their then Secretary of Veterans Affairs, to make sure that at the end of the day, we weren't just right, we didn't just try our best, but that we got something done. And on March 22nd of 2018, 1 year to the day, it got passed through the Senate. It was on the President's desk for signature, opening up mental health care to tens of thousands of veterans who've been denied it before, saving lives in the process, showing that we can work together when it really counts. We can get after the work before us in this country and in this state. That's the way that I want to meet the challenges that we described today. All of us working together, everyone in this room, everyone outside the walls of this room. That is what it's going to take. So, listen, I want to end where I started. I am grateful and incredibly fortunate to be a part of what you're making happen right now. I know that we're all motivated by the same desire to deliver for this country that we love so much, and there could not be a better time to be alive and be doing this work on this planet, in this country, in this community, and in this state. You with me? I'm with you. I'm looking forward to answering your questions. I'm grateful for the chance to be here. Thank you very much. Thank you. If everyone's got a little bit more time, I want to make sure that I have the chance to hear your comments, answer your questions, gain the wisdom of your feedback, your constructive criticism, where we can be doing a better job. Cynthia Cano, right here, has got a microphone. If you get her attention, you don't even have to get in a line. She'll bring